Hello, everyone. Welcome back to The Art of Being a Woman. I'm your host, Courtney, and this week's episode is on the art of embracing our past. I felt called to speak about this topic because I was going through my old podcast episodes when I first started in November, and I knew at the time when I started my podcast that I wasn't aware of how to edit and how to take out background noise. And honestly, that's completely understandable. I have never been on a podcast. I have never watched a video on how to edit a podcast. And now that I'm looking back, I realize that is something I could have done, but that's okay. What matters is that I didn't like the idea that I had a few podcast episodes up that had less than great quality, and that might sound a bit hard on myself and rough, and I did struggle with that when I thought about it to myself. But then I realized I can appreciate my past and I can also release it at the same time. And I believe they both go hand in hand, actually. I think it's one thing to accept our past, and it's another thing to release it. And I feel in order to fully embrace our past, we must do both. And I was confused on that for a while. I really struggled within myself on the idea of deleting my first episodes. I always envisioned myself as someone that would keep all of her work online so that people can track my journey, because I really do see myself doing this long term. It brings me a lot of joy and a lot of inner fulfillment. So I feel that I have absolute certainty that it is meant for me. And I want my journey from the beginning to inspire anyone and everyone that listens to this to know that if they want something bad enough, and it can really be just sharing your own experiences in life, which the world needs more of, then you do that and you will make it if you believe in yourself and you commit to it long term. Now, it was hard for me to admit to myself that I wanted to remove my older podcast episodes. And at first I was bringing myself down for it, because how could I? How could I want to erase the version of myself that had the bravery to even begin such a beautiful journey? I wouldn't be making this episode currently without that version of myself. And I did some journaling and I did some meditating, and I realized that I am not her anymore. I am not past me anymore, and I still love her and I still appreciate her. I have so much respect for her, and at the same time, I don't have to carry her with me everywhere I go. And that was very freeing when I realized that. I believe that if we don't pause and acknowledge our history and our past, that it can end up repeating and having a hold on us. But I also believe that once we confront our past and accept it, then it doesn't have the power it once did. I really want this episode to be about finding a moment in your life to pause and to really think about your past. The good, the parts of your past that make you cringe, anything. And really sit with it. And when you sit with it in silence or journal about it, you will begin to realize that regardless of how the past made you feel, it led you to something better. It led you to become a better version of yourself, a more wise, evolved version of yourself. And so we're going to get into a few steps today that really break down the process of embracing your past. And I guarantee you that by the end of this episode, you will feel a lot better about your past. It really doesn't matter what you did. It doesn't, because I personally believe that part of being on this planet as a person with a soul, it is a part of our journey to embrace our past and to not think that anything we've ever been through was a mistake. If you believe in God and you believe in a higher power and you believe that everything is divinely orchestrated, that everything happens for a reason, then how can you say that your past wasn't meant to be your past, that your present isn't meant to be your present? And I know it's hard to accept that when things don't go our way. I have felt that way often. I have felt that way from long periods of time and short periods of time. And the truth is, the only way to get out of that mindset is when you open your mind to the possibilities that, wait, maybe everything is good for me, even if I don't comprehend it right now. Let's get into these steps. We have 4 steps in total to be exact. They are 1. Acknowledge what you struggle to embrace. 2. Accept the past cannot change. 3. Respect and validate your past self. And 4. Thank the past for your growth. I am pulling these steps from my Instagram account, She is Artfully Woman, where I post written content, which is very similar to this podcast. And so if you enjoy this podcast, you would enjoy the Instagram account as well. So join us there if you would like to. I was actually reading this post over before I started recording the podcast to really get into the mindset that I was in when I wrote this. This is one of the first posts I made, and I made it on October 20th, and now we're in January. Wow. Time really does fly when you're having fun. And it was really impressive because I realized in life we can learn things, but then you're met with a similar situation but with a different face, and it's almost as if you forgot what you learned. And that's so normal. We're all human, and that's the beauty of life. We always have opportunities to go through experiences again and again until we master it. And when I was reading the post over before starting this podcast episode, I realized, wow, I've already learned the lesson of embracing my past through other past experiences. But for some reason, when it was a different scenario, when it had a different face, and it was about the podcast, and it wasn't about other areas of my life that I've learned to embrace, I was met with the same challenge. Do I suppress this part of me that feels uncomfortable about my past, or do I find a way to embrace it? And when I was going through the feelings of, should I delete these podcast episodes, should I not, I knew deep down that I wanted to channel this experience I was going through into an episode, into some sort of content, because I feel like feelings as a whole are so universal. I don't believe that there's a feeling that is unique. I feel we all experience so many different types of emotions, and we're never the first one to go through something. And that is very comforting to me. I hope that it brings comfort to you as well, because when we have intense emotions, we can feel very isolated. We can feel very misunderstood. And that is a normal way to feel, but it's not the truth. And it's good to remember that. Let's get into the first step. We have acknowledge what you struggle to embrace. Now, there's parts of our past that we forget easily, and they can be good ones, they can be bad ones, however you want to categorize them. There's moments from our past where, as much as we want to leave them behind and move on, we can't. They keep resurfacing, and it can trigger an emotion within us. It can trigger embarrassment, it can trigger shame, it can trigger guilt. And originally, when I had these thoughts, I would feel so down because of it. And I would feel like I could have done better, or why does this thought keep resurfacing? The past is in the past. I know that I can't go back and change it. Why can't I just accept it and move on? And I didn't realize that the parts of our past that keep resurfacing, the ones that we don't want to think about, it's for a reason. It's trying to bring awareness to a part of our life that we did not accept, that we did not understand the value of it. And that's something that really changed my perspective recently about my past. The brain is trying to protect us by not dealing with difficult emotions in the moment of going through something. But then it will lead to flashes and bits of pieces resurfacing in our mind as time goes on, because it still needs to be dealt with. It's still stored in the mind, but it was never addressed. It's like having a bunch of emails in your inbox, and the ones that are so important, but it's a lot of work to respond to that email, you just sort of ignore it for now because you just don't have the mental capacity, you don't have the energy to deal with it right now. So you're going to focus on all the easier emails that you have and leave the more time-consuming ones for a different day. The thing is, the more we avoid something, the bigger the dread becomes. Then it becomes harder to accept that this is something that you're going to have to process and go through and overcome. And that's really what acknowledging what you struggle to embrace is about. We have to admit to ourselves that there is something that is difficult for us to think about. It's something that's difficult for us to fully feel. And when we acknowledge what those memories are, we can start to accept them And once we accept them, we can release them and we never have to think about them again. But it starts with acknowledging that we struggle and that certain memories arise these difficult emotions within us. The emotions aren't bad. We're not bad for feeling these emotions. We need these emotions so that we can grow and expand and elevate and get out of this story that we don't even want to be a part of anymore. I can use my example of the podcast episode. I really realized now that I've deleted a few of my original episodes of this podcast, I no longer carry that weight of feeling like a beginner. And I didn't even expect that to fall off my shoulders when I deleted the episodes. I really did it with the intention of just wanting to produce content that I put my 100% all into. And yes, at the time when I recorded my first episodes, I did put my all into it. The ideas were still amazing to me and they were impressive. Yes, my mind has expanded and grown since I started. That is the goal always for me. But I didn't like that my quality wasn't top notch. I didn't want someone to click on my podcast for advice and it sounds like I'm not as committed and serious about my message. And that's a personal thing for me. I was a big concern that I might be letting people down in the future because I did not show my humble beginnings. But the truth is, this is all humble beginnings because every day we're growing, we're changing, and that's a past version of ourselves. It doesn't have to be us years ago. It can be us yesterday, us a week ago. Those are past versions of ourselves too. And we are only responsible for the present moment. A second ago, a second into the future, I don't have control of in this present moment. And when we direct our attention outside of what's in our control, we lose all control. And so to bring the power back to us, we need to focus on where we are right now and how to feel good in our mind, body, and soul. A little tip that I like to do when I am having a hard time acknowledging what I'm struggling to embrace, I journal. I meditate. And when I meditate, I started doing this new thing that I close my eyes and I mentally ask a question to my inner self. And I ask myself, why do I have a hard time accepting this? Why do I have a hard time releasing this? And I will have a conversation with my intuition. And the answer is not going to come to you instantly. Sometimes I sit with my eyes closed for 10 minutes. Maybe I'll have to do another 10 minutes, but honestly, it never takes more than 10 minutes for me. And I really get to ask all the questions I want to ask, whether it's about my day and what I seek guidance in that I might not find clarity on so easily. And the answers tend to just speak to me. And the best part about it is that the answers aren't coming from anybody but me. And it's an abstract concept to accept that all the answers we need are within us. But I advise you to try it and see what you end up discovering about yourself. Because who knows you better than you? Nobody. Now, let's get into step 2. We have accept that the past cannot change. I feel like it's easy for people to say that they accept the past cannot change. And this applies to me as well. I can easily say, I know the past cannot change. But then that raises the question, if we know that the past cannot be changed, why are we hung up on it? Why are we stuck? Why does that make us feel paralyzed? Is it because we think that it's not right, we should be able to change the past, or that the past should have been different? By saying that you wish the future was different, or just not understanding why it went down that way, even though you accept it is what it is, we have to really stop fighting it. We have to really let go of this need to understand and overanalyze the past, because we are not even there anymore. And there's a quote that I saw somewhere. I wish I remember who said it, but I'm sure if you Google it, it will tell you. And it says, if you go to the past, no one will be there. And I hope I'm saying it right, but the point basically is, it doesn't exist. The past literally does not exist. If you want to stay stuck in the past, and if I want to stay stuck in the past, we can. But no one's there. And what that also means is, if we're judging ourselves for our past decisions, are we judging other people for their past decisions? Are we holding grudges on other people for things that they did to us years ago, months ago, days ago. And look, it's okay to not want to do things the way that you did it in the past. That's good, that's growth. But you should be able to acknowledge that had you not experienced what you experienced in the past, you would not have that discipline and that motivation to not repeat it. So by accepting the reality of what's already done, we really allow our minds to relax, because it becomes this weight of trying to rewrite a story that cannot be rewritten. And we have to really accept that maybe we don't know what's best for ourselves in the bigger picture of things. We only see our whole life up until this current point. And whether you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, we have another 50 years to live, God willing, if we take care of ourselves well. And so we have no clue what we're set out to accomplish for the rest of our lives. And when we're in the moment that we're in right now, it can be very hard to understand why certain things happen the way that they did. But when you surrender to the idea that things are unfolding exactly the way that they should, that is when you start to really tap in to your potential, and you start to accept your past for what it is. The most important component of accepting your past is not wanting it to change. When it comes to accepting the past, what I had to really go through within myself is I can accept the past, but I don't have to dangle it over my head. And what I mean by that is there are times in my life, like with this podcast and the first episodes that I put out, where I did something, and although I am so happy I did it, I wish I did it a little differently. I wish I would have researched how to edit episodes better. And honestly, I really don't anymore, because I've accepted it and I've released it. But in the moment of processing this difficulty with accepting the first episodes that I've published, I was stuck, because I just felt like, why couldn't I have done a better job? And I learned the most beautiful lesson of all. And it's that I can start something even if it's not perfect. And when I realized that, I just felt so happy, because for a long time in my life, if I did not do something perfectly, I wouldn't do it at all. And I thought that was a flex. I thought that was the point of life. You only do what you're great at, and what you're not great at is not meant for you. And that's not true. We can be really talented at something, but we're gonna be a little rusty in the beginning. And that's exactly how life works too. Just because we didn't have the best start, we didn't have the best grasp and understanding of what we wanted out of life in the beginning, doesn't mean that the rest of our life is going to be the same exact way. If anything, the people that get the most fed up and frustrated with where they're at, they end up having so much energy that they can channel into a solution, into change. And I hope that helps you really accept whatever it is that is hard for you to release. Now, step 3, we have respect and validate your past self. This is something that has been hard for me in the process of embracing my past. I can totally understand why I did what I did, whether I had lack of experience, lack of knowledge, and I understand all those things. But respecting and validating that version of myself, I realized I had difficulty sympathizing with myself, because I tend to expect a lot from myself. And that could be because of childhood, when we grow up with people that have high expectations for us, and it's because they love us, it's because they see our potential. And that's not a personal thing, but it could turn into a personality trait where we set really high expectations for ourselves. And ultimately, it's a good thing. But if we are just starting out on a new journey, whether it's starting a new career, starting to accept and embrace our own past, we don't want to expect too much perfection from ourselves, because it's discouraging. And we have to think back to different points in our life when we started something new for the first time. It can be as simple as when we started to walk, and when we started to talk, and when we started to go to school, and when we started to play a new sport or a new instrument. Whatever the case may be in your own life, we were not good in the beginning. And after practicing and going through the process of building a new skill, we ended up becoming so good that we forgot that we were horrible at it. Not only were we horrible, we were the worst at it, right? Babies don't know how to walk, and nobody is mad at them for that, because how would they know any better? And if anything, we admire babies because they're so brave. They have no clue that they're going to be able to withstand their weight when they start walking. They have trust. They have this inner knowing and determination that they want to get from point A to point B. And you let them try. You let them get up and they fall right back down. Maybe they can't even get up. It doesn't matter. Each time they move a little bit closer, until it just clicks and everything falls into place and they become more confident in their walk. And that is how embracing our past can ultimately be for us. And that's a perfect example because no one goes to a toddler and a preschooler and tells them, remember when you couldn't even walk? Remember when you couldn't sit up and hold your own weight? And it sounds funny when I say it out loud, but that's sort of what we do to ourselves. We can move so far along in our journey, and yet there's some sort of voice that's telling us, remember when you didn't know what you were doing in life and you made this mistake, which again, there's no mistakes, and it can get us stuck in that loop again. And so the next time that a memory from your past resurfaces, and again, it doesn't have to be something from years ago. Perhaps you've already accepted everything from years ago, but something happened this week, you're having a hard time letting go. I want you to validate that version of you. And the way that I validate myself in these moments is by focusing on a strength that I had in that moment. And a lot of times, if you think about a past memory that's resurfacing for you, it was a whole story. It was a whole memory. And we tend to zoom in on that one thing that we did wrong, or at least we think we did wrong. And when we zoom out a little bit in that specific story, we realize that wasn't a complete mess up. And we can sort of realize that there were other things that were going right. There were other things that we are proud of that version of ourselves for doing. And we should focus on that. That really helps me when I need to validate myself. And back to my example on the podcast and deleting the episodes, I acknowledge that I had so much bravery and I had so much certainty and so much trust in myself that even if I didn't know how to edit a podcast, even if the quality wasn't good, my message would get through. And this is just the foundation. I will figure it out along the way and I will get better because that is how every skill is built. It takes time, and I accepted that I wouldn't be a professional in the beginning. And I love that. I love that about that version of myself. I needed her at the time, but I don't need her anymore. I love her, I accept her, I validate her, and I release her. Now, let's get into the fourth step. Thank the past for your growth. Our most painful moments are what break us open. And I know that when people get heartbroken, they assume their heart breaks into a million pieces and they have to put the pieces back together. But what if, instead of your heart breaking apart, what if it's just opening more so that the love can come through? And that can be love for ourselves. It can also be love for other people around us. And I never saw it from that point of view when I was growing up. But the older that I got, I realized the more that I've experienced in life and the more that I've sat with the parts of myself that felt hurt and misunderstood, the more I was able to heal myself. And that was life-changing. And I really could not have learned to love myself so much had I not been through experiences that broke my heart open. And that can be a hard concept to accept, because it can really feel that when hard things happen in our lives that we are helpless and that life is unfair. But I promise you that many successful people in this world, when they talk about the foundation of their success, it's always with a story of when they had no one to turn to but themselves. And once they turned to themselves, they realized how much power they held within themselves, and they kept tapping into that, and they grew to be so much more full of love and possibility than they ever would have been in their whole entire life. And so with this last step, I encourage you to really thank yourself for the harder experiences that you went through in life. Not only because you got through them, and it doesn't matter how you did that, you still got through it and you got to this point right now, but also thank yourself because I bet you that those experiences that you're still holding on to have deep potential for your greatness. As you go through this process and this journey of embracing your past, I hope that it will unlock for you and things will start to click and make sense for you, and you will fully understand why it is life had you go through certain things. A simple way that I express thanks to my past self is by writing a gratitude list. This just helps me keep an open mind into my life because things are always happening every day, and it's not always an easy day to see the good and to be grateful, but that is the challenge. The challenge is to train your mind to find goodness in everything, the easy and the more challenging parts of life. And I definitely advise making gratitude a part of your daily tasks and watch how you fall more in love with life and more in love with yourself and all the things that every past version of yourself has done to lead you to where you are right now and where you're going. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I loved making it. I really go through every single experience that I talk about on this podcast, and I hope that shines through. I hope you have a great week. Until next time, bye for now.